This is the Bat Flip Podcast. Now here's your host, Damien, David, and Matt.
Hello, everybody, and welcome in to another edition of the Bat Flip Podcast. I forgot to hide the welcome screen, but we are back this week. We took a hiatus last week, and I am here today. Matt, that is me. I am joined by David. That is him.
Me. Hi.
Yes. So, David, how are you doing this week?
Certainly been better. We had a death in the family last week, so it's been a bit of a busy and trying week. But we're here to bring you guys up to speed. The Bat Flip news podcast Bat Drop. It's try to get some news and notes out for you, and it's best you can do. Try to kind of go back to normal after something like that, and I don't know. My team's been playing bad too, so it's all kind of a negative for me. But how you doing, Matt?
I'm doing pretty good. I actually just got back in from Dallas today. I had to go out there for a wedding, so I've been out of town and on airplanes all day. But I'm back now and ready to talk a little bit of baseball. We've had a pretty busy couple of weeks. We've started off today. We're going to talk about some managerial firings, which is kind of crazy this early in the season. A little bit more player drama. We've discussed some in the past, and it's flared up again this week. We're going to have some talk about some injuries, guys get called up, guys returning from injury, and we'll wrap it all up today with our players of the day / players of the week, kind of recapping our polls that we do every night. So, but I guess we'll start off with the big news of the week. The first one that happened was that the Pittsburgh Pirates, who were, I believe at the time, they were like 12-26. I know they've won a couple games since then, but they fired manager Derek Shelton after the rough start this year. So definitely an interesting move. It's hard to blame Derek Shelton for what's happened here this year, but David, what are your thoughts on this?
I mean, it's a scapegoat, right? We talked, we did our season predictions stuff about the Pirates early in the season, and we said this team was just not good enough for where the Pirates are going to be in this rebuild, right? They needed to make external additions to the roster beyond Tommy Pham, who has been absolutely dreadful. Like the bottom line, like Derek Shelton's team wasn't good enough, and I saw reports. I don't know if those are confirmed, but that he was kind of trying to get fired, or he was hoping to get fired because, I mean, it's just a team that's not going to hit. It's not going to perform. You're asking a lot out of Brian Reynolds and O'Neill Cruz to hold that offense down. And Andrew McCutchen, who's 38 years old, to hold that offense down. Those guys have played okay. Reynolds is off to a slower start. Cruz has been off to a good start. McCutchen's been pretty good, especially for what you're going to ask of a 38-year-old DH who's actually had to play the outfield because the Pirates have no one. They have no position players. The position player development just isn't there. That's an organizational failure. Like the rest of this is organizational failure by the Pirates. Like the Cubs played them a couple of weeks ago. It was, a team that doesn't scare you, right? You get through those top three, doesn't scare you offensively. The pitching staff is really good, especially the starting pitching, but if you get a couple of runs across, that's all it takes. So one bad outing by an Andrew Heaney, who's not the most reliable pitcher, that's all it takes to beat this Pirates team, and that's why they're 12-25 or whatever it was. They're getting managers fired. They're last place in the Central. Like there's a team that we predicted to have a better season because they have talent coming, but it's talent they did not supplement. And Shelton is a scapegoat for, I think, the failings of the front office and ownership.
Yeah, I'm with you. I agree. I don't think you can pin this on Derek Shelton. Now, was Derek Shelton doing such a good job that he was making up, actually being a positive for this team? Probably not. I mean, I don't really think the manager in a lot of ways doesn't matter unless they're doing a terrible job. And I don't think Derek Shelton was necessarily doing a good job, but I don't think he was doing a terrible job either. I don't know that he was. I just think that he was, like you said, he was scapegoated a little bit. Part of this too. I mean, look at this offense. They have a 76 WRC plus on the season as an offense for the entire team combined, and minus 0.2 WAR. I mean, you're just not going to win any games like that. And I mean, I get, Brian Reynolds has been really, really bad. And that's the guy they did spend money on, keeping him around. And, when you don't spend a lot, you have to hit on every guy you do spend on. And at that point, when you've got Brian Reynolds being this bad, a couple of their prospects that showed some promise a couple of years ago, guys like Indy Rodriguez, who was a high-end prospect at one time, he's been awful. Jack Sawinski, who was a guy that had a couple of really good seasons for them, he's been really bad this year, minus .3 WAR. And I mean, some of the guys just haven't hit. Like, Brian Hayes has just never figured out how to hit. Never had figured out how to get the ball off the ground. So while Andrew McCutcheon's been fine and O'Neal Cruz has actually been really good,
Really good.
Joey Bart's been really good. That's been an encouraging sign for him. It hadn't been all bad, but in the pitching, of course, as you mentioned, even without Jared Jones this year so far, they've been pretty good on the mound. Paul Skeens has been great.
Yeah.
Mitch Keller's peripherals have been good. I mean, even some of their guys like Ryan Barucki, he's got a 2.04 FIP and a 2.70 ERA coming out of the bullpen, with David Bednar having had a not great start. So
now I've got a David Bednar note as well.
He's
right?
gotten a lot better late in recent days. So
David Bednar got sent down, got right, has come back and been absolutely disgusting.
yeah,
David Bednar of old, he's back in the closer's role.
yeah,
Again, where do you put that, right? Where do you slot that? Because David Bednar hasn't been himself for a year. It was a year plus until he's gotten back.
Right.
And right now, I mean, he's running a strikeout, a more than a strikeout an inning, less than a walk an inning. Like he's doing everything right out of the bullpen right now. Is that a minute? Like Shelton was in place when Bednar got back. Like it's not a manager thing. Like Bednar just didn't perform to start the season, but how can Derek Shelton be blamed for going to David Bednar, who's one of the best closers in Pirates history? How can you be blamed for going to David Bednar to start the season, him blowing up several times, getting sent down, and then he comes back and he's good? Like, how can Shelton be blamed for that? Like,
no, I agree with you. I mean, I don't think it's a Shelton thing, but I mean, if you're the Pirates, I understand. If you don't think he's doing a phenomenal job, I do understand doing this, because I think that there's been some recent history of midseason firings sparking a team. You think about the Phillies with Joe Girardi getting fired and bringing in Rob Thompson. You think about the Blue Jays a couple years ago, did the same thing, kind of sparked them midseason. I don't think that's going to happen with this Pirates team, but I think that the ownership and the GM probably felt it's worth a try. I mean, they didn't think Derek Shelton was a long-term answer, so losing him wouldn't be that big of a deal. And anyways, we'll see. I definitely am on the belief that this was not Derek Shelton's fault, but at the same time, I just don't know that he was doing anything spectacular that makes him really need to keep him. Yeah. But I guess we can move on to the next guy here, and the next team. We were going to talk about this team before the news today, and then the news came out today that Bud Black has been fired by the Colorado Rockies. So I guess we could just start off talking about how historically bad the Rockies are, and then we can talk about Bud Black a little bit. The Rockies right now are 7-33. I mean, that is just crazy. Like, I mean, that is like last year's White Sox, but worse. David, I mean, the Rockies, obviously we knew they were going to be bad coming into the season, right? I mean, we knew they were going to be bad, but I mean, how are they this bad? Especially playing in Coors, where they have an advantage there when they play home games. I mean, because they're used to it. Like, it's hard for them to be this bad, right?
Yes and no, right? Like my issue with this Rockies team is not, it's not the way they've spent money before these last couple of off seasons, right? I think you'll hang Chris Bryant on him, right? But Chris Bryant's back, the discs in his back have blown out. Like, you can't plan for that. That's ridiculously unfortunate. The fact that he's gone to Coors. I mean, it's harder to stay healthy in the elevation too. I think if Chris Bryant was playing somewhere warm, he probably is more healthy and more like himself. But I mean, just a super unfortunate, in terms of free agent spending. Then they've supplemented bad or unfortunate big contracts with poor player development. Right. We see a lot of young guys come up and they struggle badly. They have cycled the Rockies have cycled through a lot of young guys, a lot of really talented young guys, and we've seen a lot of those young guys go to other teams and get really, really good. It's frustrating at this point. Nolan Jones was the first one that came to mind, but he's also since kind of fallen back to earth. But he's not the only story. And on top of all that, they've drafted poorly. This is just been a colossal organizational failure that's kind of been kept above water by guys like Charlie Blackmon, who stayed there for their whole career, were able to kind of win them enough games to where they were never really picking first. They weren't in the top of the lottery. They never cratered like this. They have, Herman Marquez and guys that have been there, that have Kyle Freeland, that have performed pretty well for the last several years, and injuries and young guys coming up have really been able to keep them alive where this doesn't happen. But this is bad for baseball. Like, this is terrible for baseball that 2 consecutive seasons we're looking at a team breaking the all-time losses record. It's terrible for baseball. And it falls strictly on ownership, where the Rockies are a bad team. They haven't allocated money to their player development pool. They haven't allocated money to their roster. They haven't seen the light and gone, we need to dump out of some of these guys that are just okay. They're not really going to get any better. We'll try to move on from them and then try and, change our trajectory. I mean, Alex Bregman was sitting there in free agency until March. The Rockies could have dumped $200 million on his doorstep.
Yeah.
That's a rich franchise in a huge market. Bregman would kill at Coors, and maybe he turns your team around. You move Ryan McMahon over to first base or something, and now you have a little bit of a better, infield offense. And it was such an obvious issue that this team is just consistently not addressed. It's ownership down. And this is the owner that's crying about the Dodgers making moves. And look, you and I are going to moan about the Dodgers, I promise. Right. But the Dodgers are the only team in baseball that has consistently acted like a multi-billion-dollar franchise, and no other team is willing to do that, especially this Colorado Rockies organization. And that is, it is fundamental failure from the top down that is resulting in this catastrophic failure. And it's what resulted in the White Sox catastrophic failure last year. It's what the problem is with Pittsburgh. It comes from the top. It has come from the top. It's taken years to get to this point. But we're seeing the result of years of penny pinching and lack of development, lack of improvement, keeping with the times. Like guys that have performed well, like Brenton Doyle and Nolan Jones, and just they're performing so bad. It comes down to scouting. It comes down to the information and the stuff that you're giving your guys. Yeah. Like, they're not putting their players in a position to succeed. They're already playing at a disadvantage at Coors, and you call it an advantage because they're used to it. But like, I feel like it's a disadvantage for all your pitchers.
Yeah,
I hate it.
Yeah, I'll say, I'm not going to complain about the Rockies' payroll, because if you look at them as the team,
it's always been decent.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, we can complain about every owner not spending money. Like, we could do that, but the Rockies, relatively compared to other teams, haven't been a penny pinching organization. Now, they haven't been the Dodgers, but they haven't been penny pinching. I mean, they despite the fact that we knew coming into the season this was tank time, this was a tank season for the Rockies, they still have a higher payroll than 10 other teams, including 2 teams that were coming into the season as legitimate contenders in Kansas City and Cleveland have lower total payrolls than the Colorado Rockies. So, I mean, I'm not going to complain about that. Also, the Brewers, who were a fringe contender coming into the season. So I'm not going to complain about their payroll. I think the big thing is here, as you mentioned, the ownership can be bad in 2 different ways. You could be bad in the way that you just are penny pinching, not spending money. That's the Bob Nuttings of the world who just do not want to spend a dime. Mm-hmm. That's the Miami Marlins ownership. Mm-hmm. That's in a lot of ways the A's ownership. Even though they did spend a little bit more this year, they still have the 3rd lowest payroll in baseball. You look at that as one thing, but the other bad type of ownership is not having a plan, not having a direction, not knowing where you want to go with this thing. And I think that's been the Rockies' problem. That when they've spent money, it's been erratically and it's been weird. The Chris Bryant signing, I understand at the time signing Chris Bryant just as a general move for a team. I mean, we knew he was maybe going to have injury issues. That was a risk of him, but he was still performing pretty well. He did pretty well with the Giants in that going into that playoff
Mhm.
run. He had been good when he had played with the Cubs the last few years before that. He was still a really good player. Now, but for the Rockies, it didn't make any sense because the Rockies were a
Right.
team that needed to rebuild. I mean, you cannot just spend your way through every single thing unless you're the Dodgers. But I, they could sign every free this offseason. They could have signed every free agent on the market, and they might have been a like 500 team. I mean,
Yeah.
even if they had signed Juan Soto and Alex Bregman, they could have been a 500 team. Like, this team is terrible. The they don't, as you mentioned, I think the analytics side of things and the development side, I think they're really far behind on that. They don't believe in it. Um, I mean, this team right now, I mentioned the Pirates having like what minus .2 WAR or something as a team, offensively with bats. This team has a minus 2.4 WAR and a 67 WRC plus. Now the RWRC plus that's ballpark adjusted for cores,
Right.
so it doesn't mean they're that much worse even despite core, like cores adjusts, but still, I mean, it's crazy. The guys they've spent money
Mhm.
on, Ezekiel Tovar has been
Yeah.
awful. He's got a 43 WRC plus this year.
Yeah.
Chris Bryant, as you mentioned, he had a -2 WRC plus in the 11 games he played before going on the IL, and we don't know if he's ever going to play again.
Yeah. Them
Their
their
best
back end.
hitter, yeah, their best hitter has been Jordan Beck, believe it or not, who's played 30 games. He's been pretty good. A rookie that came up. He's got a 128 WRC plus, .7 WAR. So maybe a little bit of a good sign there. And the bullpen's been a little bit of a bright spot with Jake Bird there, and Zachary Agnos, I guess is how you say his name. He's been pretty good
Yeah.
in 10 innings. Got a .87 ERA. I mean, there's not a lot of good things to say about this team right now, but
Mhm.
you know, you just have to come into you have to figure out a way to develop a real plan, and they've got their disadvantages of
Mhm.
a lot of pitchers don't want to go there. They do not want to go to Coors.
Yep.
They've got that disadvantage, but a lot of hitters do want to go to Coors because it'll boost their numbers
Mhm.
up, and they'll this is just one of those things where I think they're going to have to go full blown rebuild, and I think that's what they're doing now. I think they are going full blown rebuild. They really don't have many assets to trade away, which is a
Yeah.
problem. I mean, maybe Kyle Freeland, his peripherals have been good this year, but obviously the ERA is high. That's probably a Coors thing with his peripherals. Uh,
Freeland's on a huge extension. Also,
he's on an extension. He's
yeah.
controlled long term, so I know. I mean,
He's
I would
30,
trade him.
30 something, right? Like,
He is 32.
yeah.
Herman Marquez is another one that if he figures it out sometime this year, he's just coming back from injury. Maybe he will figure it out and be a guy they could trade. They should have traded him 3 years ago before he got
Right.
hurt. The relievers, as I mentioned, guys like Jake Bird, definitely would be a good trade target for a lot of contenders. I think
Yep.
that the Rockies should move someone like him, maybe get some prospects back, pick higher in the draft, and try to figure
Mhm.
it out from there. And they've picked high in the draft. I mean, Chase Dolander's in the big leagues now. He was a high
Yep.
draft pick. I believe they picked Charlie Condon last year. Is that right?
They did, yeah.
So
Actually,
he's
yeah, so,
he's in the minor
but
leagues, and seeing what he'll do. But anyways, it'll be interesting to see what happens with the Rockies. As Damian chimes in, Bud Black deserved better. We're about to talk about that. So,
I
David,
don't know if he did. Like,
David, what do you think of Bud Black?
yeah, I mean, what do you do, right? If you're Bud Black, right? The team just hasn't been there for you,
Yeah.
quite a bit. Now, we're talking about also like, you got the lack of analytics and stuff with regard to this organization. Like, it's very possible Bud Black is part of the problem there. We're not privy to all the information, but I'm willing to bet he was more of an old school manager, trying to, get, play by the hits, not really worry about the OBP. And that's been a lot of the theme for a guy like Amador and Tovar, who just swing, 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 swing. And those guys are really suffering for it because they're not making adjustments. And I don't know that the organization knows what to tell. Like, that's the problem. I don't know what they know to tell him. Charlie Condon, by the way, has a 42% strikeout rate in the complex league. So that's not good. They picked him third last year. Dollander has like a 7 ERA.
Yeah,
And that's not really surprising, but like, he's been bad.
Yeah, I'll say Dollander has shown flashes of being good He hasn't been consistently good. His ERA obviously is bad. The peripherals aren't very good, but he has shown some flashes. He's had a couple of games where he looked good.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's
So
seeing a guy like that struggle, and I know he's probably going to not like be as expected. I was kind of hoping he would be a guy that could overcome the Core's, disaster potential, but it doesn't seem like that's the case. How much of that is the coaching staff? Like how much of that is the group around him saying, do these things and being wrong? And they've been wrong for years. This is not a team that's been in the playoffs since 2018.
yeah.
Like they have gone through multiple years of stagnation. And it seems to me that they have lost that ability to find the advantages in their ballpark's differences.
Yeah.
And that's what they need to get back. A new manager helps, but again, I think this thing starts with the ownership. It starts with who they're putting in the analytics department to make, who can capitalize on your field the best, right? What pitchers can gain the most out of Coors. If I'm playing in that field every day, I'm going to make sure that I set up my team for the most success. I don't feel like they've done that. I feel like they've tried to go about it the same way as other teams. Like Dollander felt like a guy to go to one of those high spin organizations that's, like the Dodgers or the Braves or somebody who's teaching spin, teaching these big nasty wipeout sliders. That felt like a Dollander pick, and the Rockies taking him felt like a mistake, and it's looking like a mistake, even though he blitzed through the minors because he's a very good pitcher. His stuff's just not going to play at the major league level because of where he's going to play. And it seems like they need to adjust what they're doing, and they're not adjusting.
Yeah, I'm with you. I feel like the Rockies going forward need to have guys who throw hard sinkers and get a lot of grounders. I think that's the key, and also change ups. I think sinker change up type guys. Anytime you're trying to rely on spin, like high spin four seamers, or or wipe out sliders, the sweepers, all those kinds of pitches. The Coors effect does not do well with those, especially with tight sliders. I mean, if you think about curveballs, sometimes gravity can help with curveballs. That'll be fine in Coors. But those tight sliders, man, there's going to be cement mixers in Coors. And you just have to have some way of getting the ball on the ground, locating well. And then with the bats, I think, bringing in guys with plate discipline and that put the ball in play a lot, get on base. And I mean, if you put the ball in play in Coors, I think the biggest part of offensively at Coors being so much different is not necessarily that you're going to hit a ton of home runs. I mean, you are going to hit a lot of home runs, but the field is so big. They made the field built for the elevation by moving the fences way back. And that means there's just so much ground to cover in the outfield. Just putting the ball in play in Coors. There's so many of those bloop hits and pop-ups that fall behind the second baseman and in front of the outfielder. And when you've got a bunch of guys running 30% strikeout rates, you're just not getting the same amount of as a team that's running a 20 or 18% strikeout rate as a team. So I definitely think that you looking at the Rockies, they really need to kind of go into that form of things. And I mean, I don't blame them for taking a guy like Chase Dolander or somebody, but that's a good pitcher. And Charlie Condon, we'll see what happens with him. He's been injured, so I don't want to totally, he's only played 6 games this year. It hadn't been great 6 games, and last year wasn't great. But yeah, I don't know. You can go ahead.
I do have one more thing, and I want to take the Rockies and kind of push us to the future here. So
yeah.
What you're going to look for as probably a fan of a contending team is what are the Rockies to know as we hit this trade deadline? Because it does look like if they're firing a manager midseason, they're going to be trading people. You mentioned Kyle Freeland, Herman Marquez. Those are kind of longtime Rockies. You probably know if you've been around the Major League Baseball scene. Jake Bird's a new guy. He's had a good start, but I don't know that that's a guy that I'm counting on. The guy I'm really interested in out of their bullpen is Seth Halverson. He throws 100 mile an hour.
Another one. Yeah, he's good.
I think Seth Halverson could be the future closer of insert team without a closer who's currently looking to contend. I'm thinking of a certain one. I'll leave it to the imagination of the listeners. But I also am looking at Ryan Feltner. We didn't mention him before. I think Ryan Feltner is a dang good pitcher who, pull him out of Coors, winds up being one of those guys that takes a big leap. And, we've seen it before where some guys pull out of Coors and aren't able to keep up with their the nastiness of their stuff, like Tyler Chatwood. But I do think Ryan Feltner is the kind of guy who doesn't have he doesn't have the stuff in Coors, but he's got the arsenal to be really successful as a very solid 2-3 starter outside of Coors. And that's a guy that could definitely fetch the Rockies something at the deadline because he's just in arbitration. He's, that's a much cheaper contract than I think the Freeland contract, which I think they will be lucky to offload Freeland. So those are the guys to look out for. I think there's nothing on this offense. Ryan McMahon maybe, but you're not getting anything for him.
Yeah, Ryan McMahon is interesting. He plays good defense, and he can play multiple positions on the infield. I think he would get something. He wouldn't get like a top 100. Wouldn't get a top 100 guy or anything, but he would get, he'd get an interesting prospect.
He's on a $20 million a year contract, isn't he? Like $20 million a year for a sub 100 WRC plus in defense.
Yeah,
I mean, that's John Birdie. Like,
I believe he might be a rental. I'm
not
100% sure. Oh, never mind. He just signed that extension a couple years ago. You're right. Yeah. He's an $11 million AAV though.
Oh, okay.
So, and he has an opt out after 2026 if top 5 in MVP voting, which is not
okay. That's
not.
That's not going to happen.
Yeah, $11 million a year for Ryan McMahon is definitely fair though. Like that's a positive contract for a team, even though he's 30 years old, and there's something there. He's running a 16% walk rate this year. I mean, I don't totally believe in him. He's a great defensive player too. Maybe go into a different situation would help him. But anyways, it'll be interesting. And my thoughts on Bud Black are just, I don't think it's his fault. You mentioned the analytics stuff. I don't know that that's Bud Black's fault. I think that's just the organizational direction that comes from the top, the ownership, and then the front office. I don't know that that's Bud Black's fault. Now he's kind of been put in awful situations his entire baseball career as a manager. Just the Padres situation he was in was bad, and then he took over the Rocky situation, which was okay when he got there. He actually did really well those first couple of years there, taking them to the playoffs, and then the situation got bad because their players started aging, and then they traded Nolan Arenado for some reason and didn't get anything back, and then it just kind of fell apart. So but tough for him. I'm sure he'll find another job in baseball, and maybe one day he'll get a shot with a real organization. But I guess we'll move on from a GM and manager and all drama to player drama, right?
Man.
We can talk a little bit again about Rafael Devers. Oh boy, Rafael Devers is back in the news for complaining about helping his team. He apparently had a discussion with his with the GM this week. They were hoping to move him to first base. While Tristan Casas is out, the team is really struggling at first base right now. And he said, I will not play first base. It's not easy to switch positions, and I won't do it. So he's not happy. And David, we've talked about this some in the past. What do you think of this?
Well, let's go back to, right. Remember, they asked him to step off third base. They signed him to in the previous GM regime, signed him to a $300 million extension to play third base for the Boston Red Sox. I also would have signed that contract to play third base for the Boston Red Sox. This current regime has asked him to step off third base 1 or 2 years into that deal. Now that's already a big ask for your franchise player. This is your guy. No, it's not. That the big thing here, I think, to note is that this is the Craig Breslow Red Sox. This is not the Shane Bloom Red Sox. Shane Bloom Red Sox signed Devers to the extension. I think that the Craig Breslow Red Sox I think they're making the logical move. Like, they're making the move that we would probably see. It's like, okay, well, Devers isn't as good at third base as Bregman. And Bregman fits our needs really well. He's playing super well in Fenway. What a great signing that was, by the way. Like, okay, so Bregman's playing well. We need to move the worst third base defender. But you forgot, the thing that I think we've all forgotten initially is Devers was promised the job. He signed the extension to play third base. He would have gone to free agency to play for a team that he could have played third base for. That's where he was comfortable. That's where he played his whole career. I think he does not sign that extension if he doesn't get told he's playing third base. And then now he was asked to move, and he did move. He didn't demand a trade and sit out and do all those kinds of, I think we've seen that in the NBA, maybe some NFL stuff too. You see a guy sit out, he moved. He went to a new position. He was like, I'm going to learn to prepare as a DH. I'm not going to play the field. All right. You're going to pay $30 million a year for a DH, but all right. And now they're asking him to jump back in there. I do see the feeling from him. It's like, you guys are jerking me around a lot. That said, I've played baseball. Seems pretty easy to me. I just do it to help my guys. It's obvious we need some help there. Like, it's one of those things where, what's the quote from Moneyball? Like, first base isn't that hard. It's incredibly hard. Like, I think Devers could pick up first base. I really don't think it's that big of a deal, but I get being frustrated by this whole situation where you were originally the third baseman.
Yeah.
You should be in his mind, you should be at third base.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I understand. I understand where you're coming from. The one thing I'll say is I would understand it a lot more if he had not signed the extension, because moving somebody off of third base it's going to reduce their value. If they can play third base to a certain level, that's a higher value position than first base. So when you move a guy to first base or to DH only, and then they hit the free agent market, knowing that they're only going to be a DH, their contract that they're going to be able to get on the open market is way less than they're getting as a DH. Now, Rafael Devers already signed his contract. He already signed his $300 million. So if you're looking at him, why does it matter? I mean, why not try first base? I mean, like, what's the big deal at this point? Because, like I say, if it's going to cost you money, then sure, I understand. Now, I think it costs you more money to be known as a player that's not willing to help your team win. That's just going to be selfish and go be all in it for the money and stuff. But, if you're Rafael Devers, I mean, I don't understand that. I think he needs to be a lot more, and he maybe behind the scenes, this isn't as much drama as we think, but it's all out in the media right now, and that's a big deal. And, this team is lacking first base right now. I mean, I would assume their DH position could be handled by somebody else. I don't know what Yoshida's status is right now. I know he's been their DH the last couple of years, but yeah. And Rafael Devers, I will say this: he's having the best year of his career at the plate right now. He's got
remember when he started?
He started
for 15.
Yeah, he's been on a tear ever since that poor start. He has an expected weighted on base average xWOBA of 415. That is 15. That is 20 points higher than his career high in a season, and his his WRC plus is a 146, which is 6 points higher than 2022, which was his previous best. The expected numbers are there. He's really killing it this year. His walk rate's up to 16% this year. He's been awesome for them. They really need him to figure this situation out and to stay, and to just start helping the team, man. Like, come on. You're having a great year. Just don't wreck this. The Red Sox are a contender. Don't wreck this by causing problems in the locker room and, messing with the GM and all that.
The small bit of pushback I'll put on that is, how do we know the best year of his career at the plate isn't coming because he's playing DH? How come? And that would follow pretty well with what he's talking about. He's saying, look, I shifted my focus away from the field, away from preparing as a third baseman and to preparing as a DH. And he is having the best year of his career, as you just said. And now you're asking him to prepare also to play the field. That may take away from his offensive output. And he may be saying, I feel like that's going to hurt the team if I have to change my preparation and prepare, for first base. You and I are sitting here saying, first base, how hard can it be? It's still, he gets to sit in for 2 innings and think about the next and watch video and prepare to just hit. And he's just focused on hitting and look at the output. He is doing a great job at doing that. And what are the odds that there's another 0 for 15 with 11 strikeouts or whatever it was, gap in there where he's trying to figure out how to prep as a first baseman and I don't know. Maybe.
Well, I mean, I just think it's worth a try. I mean, if it doesn't work, if it's not going well, then the team will switch back because they won't be helping the team. I mean, but I think he needs to at least be willing to try things that help the team. I mean, I remember in 2017, Freddie Freeman switched to third base. I mean, because he was willing to help the team, and he knew he couldn't play third base. Everybody knew he couldn't play third base. So, I mean, that's kind of just what I look at with Devers. Like, just do what you can to help the team. If it doesn't go well and it's not working, then they'll change their mind. They'll change it, and they'll figure out another first base solution, and you'll be DH or third base or whatever you might want to be. So, I just think he needs to be a little bit more chill about this. And I mean, the Red Sox could handle it better and explain things better to him, be more clear in communication with him. I'm sure that's probably part of the problem, is he hadn't been communicated with properly by the front office. But Rafael Devers is too good of a player to let this situation be a big deal. He can't. He really needs to focus on how good of a baseball player he is right now, and being the leading this Red Sox team where we think they might be able to go this year. So, and if Damien's here, pointing out there's other guys that have moved too. Mookie Betts moved to shortstop. Bryce Harper moved to first base. Miguel Cabrera moved to third base. I mean,
worth noting, all of those were in the offseason.
Well, that's true. No, Bryce Harper was coming back from injury.
He was prepping. He was prepping
in
rehab. I get it. I think utility is important. That's why I thought Ben Zobrist should have been elected to the Hall of Fame last year, because being a utility player, playing every different position all the time, is a valuable skill that we do not take for granted. 100%. Being able to play multiple positions at the major league level is valuable. Devers kind of can do that, right? Like, he can play third base. We assume he can play first base. Like, he may not be comfortable there. Utility just may not be his position, like a skill that he possesses. But even so, right, like you're saying, like, dude, go start for a game at first base, see what happens, man. It can't be that different, right? Like, surely, but we're just podcasters. I see it from Devers' perspective. At the very minimum, I see what he's upset about.
Yeah,
but like, bro. It's first base. Like, we're not asking you to play center field. Go play first base.
With you. So, but yeah, I guess that'll kind of do it for our Devers discussion. I guess we can talk now about some couple of injuries and a call up. So I let David talk about this more than I will, but Shota Imanaga, I think we mentioned him last episode we did.
Yeah.
Getting injured. He pulled his hamstring.
He had a
cramp.
A cramp. And then in the next start, he pulled his hamstring.
Okay.
It's a strain. He should be back pretty quick, like 3 missed starts. But I mean, for a team that does not have much by way of pitching, this is bad. The Cubs are really light in terms of pitching. The depth is being tested. But Cade Orton came in, looked really good against the Mets. He made one mistake to Brett Beatty, and he gave up a 3-run home run on a strikeout, like an 0-2 pitch that should have been out of the zone. He threw it in. Smet mixed a curveball, and he threw it in the zone, and Beatty homered. That was the only hard contact off him the whole time. And he 5 strikeouts in 4 innings. Like, he looked really good. Slider was biting. Curveball was nasty. Like, he's got 4 pitches, man. He could get there. But I would say the Cubs not being willing to just start him in the game tells me they're not confident that he'll be back soon, and or he'll be like ready to go as a starter yet. And, with that, I just think it's going to take some time for Cade Horton to settle into major league level, but I think by the end of the year you could see it. But right now he'll probably be used as either, a 3-4 inning guy. They'll lighten his workload, keep him on a pitch count, etc. So
I'll mention one thing. Shota Imanaga was really his ERA was good, but he was having a lot of issues with getting swing and miss this year. And he was also giving up home runs. He had a really rough peripherals. His ERA was 2.82, but his peripherals were really rough to start this season. So that was tough, and we'll see what Cade Horton could do. I mean, the walks were a little bit of a problem in the minor leagues, but
not this year.
Yeah, well, he's got 4. Yeah. He's got 4 good pitches. He was a first-round pick for a reason. He's a talented guy. I think the Cubs had him in their plans this year anyway, so they thought this is probably a good time to go ahead and see what he's up to. If he can take the next step to the big leagues, then we might have another answer, because the Cubs are struggling in the pitching department. If he doesn't take the next step in the big leagues, then you can send him down. He knows what to work on, and the Cubs need some help there, because I mean they are now only 1 game ahead of the Cardinals Wow.
I told you, you
Yep.
can't count them out. You
Can't
can't
ever
do it.
count them out.
Can't
Can't
count
do it.
The Cubs are winning tonight at the very least. But
Yeah.
like I'm just, I'll tell you what though, I have been very impressed with Matt Boyd and Colin Ray. They have been very, very good. I was critical of those moves. You were critical of those
Yep.
moves. Damien was critical of those moves. They've been really good. They've panned out really nicely. It's actually been Ryan Presley, a move that we were all completely on board with, and Nate Pearson, or not Nate Pearson, Eli Morgan. Another move we were completely on board with that have been really, really bad in terms of bullpen moves. The bullpen just has not been able to get outs. And then, the injuries, losing Steele, losing Shota, it's really going to take a toll, and the Cubs are going to need to make some moves. And we said that all along anyway. But yeah, it's just, and maybe Cade Horton can be the guy. I hope he can. He looked really good, but it's only one start, and now the league's got a book on him, so he'll have to make those adjustments. And
Yep. So another call up to talk about is happened today, and that is Jordan Lawler. He got called up by the Arizona Diamondbacks. He has not played in the big leagues since a very short 14-game cup of coffee back in 2023, in which he really struggled. He's dealt with some injuries, but he has been absolutely excellent at AAA so far this year. He's at a 143 WRC plus. Strikeout rate's down, walk rate is up. Been very good there. Obviously, he's a shortstop, can really play defense. Lot to like with Jordan Lawler. So, you got any thoughts on how that might help the Diamondbacks? Because I think there's a chance that he's a talented guy. I believe he was the 4th pick in the draft back when he got picked. 6th pick in the draft. He was one of the top 2 players in that class. He's dropped for signability reasons. But David, do you think that Jordan Lawler is going to really catch on at the big leagues level and really, help spark this team some?
Where's he going to play? That's my issue with Jordan Lawler. Can he play outfield? Like he's a shortstop.
Well,
can he play outfield? Like, I don't know. He's not got anywhere to play.
So they could move Ketel Marte to DHing more, or move him to the outfield. I believe they've struggled with DH. So, maybe put Marte at DH some, Suarez at DH some, and move Lawler around the infield, move Perdomo around the infield. I think that might be kind of their plan. And that's what and Damien's chiming in. That's what he's saying. 4 or 5 games a week and play second, third, short, just kind of wherever you might need him. So I think that's probably where they're going to go here.
I am worried that Jordan Lawler is a quad A player. I'll tell you, I am worried, but I think he's going to take advantage of this opportunity, this opportunity coming after he's established himself in AAA to the point where it's very clear he doesn't need to be in AAA anymore. He's too good for AAA. That's why I say quad A. Like some guys go down to AAA, mash, come up to the major leagues, can't hit to save their life. They've got some kind of weakness that the major league pitchers know about. Let's see what happens here. He's not starting tonight. That's why I looked it up. That's why I was like, where's he going to play? I do think they need to find a way to get him in the lineup just to see what he's got. It's a team that they're down to 21-20. So they're down to 500. They were well above 500 not too long ago. So they definitely need a spark, need something to go right. But for the Diamondbacks, it's kind of been the pitching that's let them down thus far. Offense has been pretty solid still. So, Corbin Carroll's been MVP level. I just, I don't know how much they're going to be able to get him in. Torey Lovullo is one of the best managers in the game. Like, I think that's a guy that can definitely shift the lineup around, keep everything fresh, keep Ketel Marte healthy. Like, I think there's a way this works. But I will need to see whether Jordan Lawler can be more than a quad A player, because that stint in 2023 was not good. And he's also dealt with so many of those just kind of nagging injuries where, you got to find out, is that always going to be the problem with him, where he's just kind of always got something going on in terms of the injury bug. I'm not going to worry about that right now, but I do worry that the quality of contact and just the weaknesses that major league pitchers are able to exploit, it might be something that Jordan Lawler struggles with. But hey, he's Damien's pick for, he was dark horse pick for rookie of the year. So, it's a guy, Damien knows about pretty well. I feel like Lawler is a guy to watch out for sure, but I'm a little skeptical of his ability yet. So we'll see what happens. I think the Diamondbacks need something to go right here because Dodgers are going to start to pull away in short order, and you got to keep up with them. You got to bank as many wins as you can this early part of the season.
Yeah, and the fact that the Padres and the Giants have been good, better than expected for both of them. That definitely. I mean, the Diamondbacks are fourth in the division right now, which is pretty crazy considering the expectation for them. So I guess we can move on. I just wanted to briefly mention too, Ronald Acuna Jr. is starting his rehab assignment finally. There was a lot of talk of preseason that he would be back early in May, and he's just now starting his rehab assignment. So he will likely be back by the end of the month. I think you get 20 days when you start the rehab games. So that means he would be back around the end of this month. So hopefully he can come back soon for the Braves, who have rebounded somewhat. Still, there's still a lot of holes there, a lot of gaps. I think they could use the spark. They just won on a walk-off tonight after Iglesias blew another save. So that's maybe the Braves need Seth Halverson. Would like that.
Yeah.
Acuna coming back in the next few weeks. I think Strider's going to be back soon too.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't really updated him in a while, but that was not big enough to make the list that he might be back soon. But I guess we can move on. Our last thing here that tonight is going to be our players of the day / week. So David, I think you've got the numbers here. So what are we looking at on our player of the day polls for the last couple of weeks?
I do have to apologize. We didn't do them 2 weeks ago, so we will have to do one for April 28th through April 4th. I've been taking care away from baseball stuff, so I'll try to get back onto the polls in a couple of weeks. But last episode, Brandon Nimmo picked up player of the day on April 28th. We talked about that one, 9 RBIs. We had Jorge Polanco going on a tear there. He had a couple of home runs on April 29th that got him player of the day. We had our first tie. After that, Kyle Stowers was going against, I think it was Noah Cameron of the Royals. And Kyle Stowers ended up winning player of the day on April 30th. We had Seiya Suzuki May 1st. He's off to a really good start. Cal Raleigh, May 2nd. Cal was my player of the month for April. Jake Myers, May 3rd, went 4 for 4, 2 homers, a double, and a triple. The over cycle game, those are pretty rare. And then Freddie Peralta, May 4th. So, Matt, who do you think of those guys should be player of the week?
How about Myers? 4 for 4. It's a nice pick.
I think that's the one. I think that was the best performance of the week for sure. And that's a guy that we are probably not going to have a ton of.
We won't mention him again.
Right. We won't have a ton of options to call his name. So I'll go with Jake Myers for sure for that one. That was last week's player of the week. So we're catching up a little bit. This week we didn't do one on May 5th. I went ahead and gave it to AJ Smith-Shawver, 8 innings pitch for the Braves, 8 innings pitch for the Braves in a win. I think 8 innings pitch is pretty dang good.
He took a no hitter into the 8th inning of that game too.
All right, yeah, that's perfect. Nick Castellanos, May 6th, big stick Nick. Glad to get him on the list for a player of the day vote. Sonny Gray, May 7th. The Cardinals have been on a tear, as you mentioned. They are catching up in the Central. All of a sudden, kind of look playable, and Sonny Gray is their best pitcher. Gabriel Moreno, May 8th. That was a surprising one. I think there were a couple of performances I thought were better on that day. Shohei Ohtani won May 9th. I mean, it's, I think, his first appearance on this list, which is shocking to me. We didn't do one for May 10th. That was, I think, kind of on, we would have done that on Mother's Day. Everybody was a little bit busy. So I gave it to Steven Kolek, who threw a complete game shutout for the Padres. And then today's May 11th, or I guess yesterday, Mother's Day, May 11th, our poll is currently still up. You may still go vote on it for another 11 hours, but I believe the current leader is Hunter Goodman, who I believe is Rockies, right?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, Hunter Goodman of the Rockies. You also got Freddie Freeman, Ronel Blanco, and Zach Wheeler. I mean, we can call it. I think it's Ronel Blanco. I voted Ronel Blanco myself. but we can call it here and negate those votes, or we can leave it up to it. But would you put Hunter Goodman or Ronel Blanco? I think those are the top two right now as player of the week, or would you put one of those other guys?
Probably one of the other guys.
All right, so we'll leave it alone.
Yeah.
Who's it going to be though?
So I'm trying to decide between the two pitching performances. I think I'm actually going to go with this might be biased, but I'm going to go with AJ Smith-Shawver because the Braves have had the pitching injuries. They needed somebody to step up, and AJ Smith-Shawver has been that guy. He's come up and really been good at the big league level. So that's been awesome. And I think he deserves some credit. He took a no-hitter into the 8th inning, and that's not easy to do. And was that game? I'm trying to remember who they were playing in that game. That might have been the Reds.
The Reds have been dreadful offensively.
Yeah,
Ronel Blanco's on this list with 11 strikeouts against the Reds as well. So,
I'm trying to remember if that was the Reds or they played the Rockies last week, but which was at Coors. So that would have been an interesting thing to happen at Coors. But I was trying to find which team that was against. That was the Reds. So
okay,
yeah. So I mean, the Reds have been bad. That was in Atlanta. But yeah. I mean, I'm going to go with Smith-Shawver. I think it's impressive. He's a rookie.
I think Kolek is against the Rockies too. So I think
it in what ballpark was it in? Throwing a shutout at Coors.
Does it matter?
But throwing a shutout at Coors is tough.
I think they're in San Diego right now, but
okay.
Don't quote me on that. But even so, I think I'll stick with you. We'll go with AJ Smith-Shawver for the player of this week. Sorry for the Ohtani lovers, but I don't think he hit 2 homers in that game. So
it won't be his last. It won't be his last time on there. And Damien says that game was at Coors. That's Kolek through the shutout, which is that's impressive. So
that is impressive. But I think I'm still leaning Smith-Shawver because it was a no-hitter attempt, like a no-hitter bid against a much better team.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll stick with AJ Smith-Shawver. Sorry to Nick Castellanos, Sonny Gray, Gabriel Moreno, Shohei Ohtani, and Stephen Kolek, and either Hunter Goodman or Ronel Blanco. Our player of the week will be AJ Smith-Shawver. And as Matt said, I mean, he has stepped up he's not a rookie anymore, right? He's not going to be.
I believe he is technically a rookie still.
Okay.
He's been in the big leagues in parts of 2 seasons, but I don't think he's eclipsed his service time before this year. I might be wrong about that, but he didn't spend very much time in the big leagues last year.
Okay. So we'll do Jake Myers and AJ Smith-Shawver. A couple of weird players of the week, but I think they're well-deserved good performances. Probably the best performances other than like Brandon Nimmo's 9 RBI game, but I felt like that was we talked about that one. So Myers gets the nod. All right, well, that's going to wrap it up for us. We will be back next week.
Believe so. As long as we're all not dealing with issues. I know Damien hated he couldn't be here. He's had some major internet issues over the last few weeks, and I think it finally broke fully today. He said he had 0 internet service at his house, and he was getting texts to come out and look at it, and it was going to be 8:30, 9 o'clock, in our time zone. We were in the central time zone, so it was going to be late. And so we decided to go ahead and record and do this. And hopefully Damien's internet will be back in full strength next week. So we'll see if that ends up happening. But maybe we'll have a show with all 3 of us here soon.
Yeah, it's all right.
All right. Well, I guess that'll wrap it up for us. David, got any final thoughts?
Nope. I got nothing. We'll see you guys next week.
All right.
Seasons in that it's now in full swing, and there's been some fun stuff. So I'll look forward to next week, and we try to do look out for something in the midweek.
Yeah, we'll try to do something. So, all right. Well, thanks everybody for watching us. Don't forget, like, comment, subscribe, and we will catch you next week.